Katie, thank you so much for being on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really thrilled to have you here. We're going to talk about some great social media stuff. Before we get there, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show. So I'm the founder of Modern Darling Media. It is a design, branding, and marketing company. I really started it, well, it's quite a long story, but the idea behind the company is that starting a business, you have to have a lot of different components, from graphic design to web design to, a little bit of everything, social media. And I found that going to a bunch of different people, it was almost like playing telephone. Your brand got watered down. The messaging didn't always flow correctly. So I offer a comprehensive experience where you have one company handling a lot of that for you. So it really stays consistent, and it's not going to get watered down, or the messaging's not going to get off. So that was kind of the idea behind Modern Darling Media. I'm also the host of the Hustlenomics podcast, where I interview other female entrepreneurs in their journey to becoming business owners.
And I love that you're saying that, because as a fellow podcaster, we kind of share that same kind of interest and passion for doing podcasting. But what intrigues me always about, every female entrepreneur has got their own unique journey that they're going on. But there was always that one point, that kind of motivation, that push, passion, whatever you want to call it. There's always that one element in your life where you decided, this is it. I'm going to start my own company. This is what I'm going to do. What was that for you like in particular? And how did that journey kind of transform to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to grad school in University of Georgia and majored or got my master's in journalism. I've always been a writer. I love travel. I thought that would be a really perfect fit for me. But as you know, the journalism world has been changing rapidly over the past 10, 15 years. And so I moved away from print and went to a more multimedia platform, which was great because I'm interested in a lot of different things, from video to audio to writing. So that was a really good fit for me. Went to go look for jobs, and I think I put out hundreds of resumes, hundreds of cover letters, and was just hearing nothing back. And under my impression was, okay, I have a master's degree and that would help get a job. It did not, unfortunately. But I did get offered a job as a marketer for a company. Went in with really high hopes, and it just wasn't exactly a good fit. I kind of hit the wall creatively and intellectually pretty early on, and it just wasn't stimulating for me. And the environment was not a good fit either. So I started listening to podcasts while at work, mostly business podcasts like Gold Digger and things like that, where she was talking to other entrepreneurs about their journey. And it really just got me thinking, I don't want to spend my next 50 years in an office miserable. And there are other choices out there, which I had never really thought about. So I started a little side hustle on the weekend, just doing photography, that grew into doing wedding photography, wedding videography. Loved doing that because it was my first foray into actually running a business, but soon realized I missed my weekends, and it was a lot of pressure to handle somebody's wedding. So I kind of started to grow my business in other ways, using some of the skills that I had learned in grad school. So web design, graphic design, branding, and eventually got into podcasting. So that was kind of my journey into what I'm doing now. Moved across the country with my fiance about a year and a half ago to Utah from Georgia, and took a teaching job, but quickly realized that my business had grown too much to do both. Mm-hmm. So went full time, and it's been amazing since then.
Oh my gosh, I love how you're explaining your story, from going from photography to, again, back to your roots, basically, what it is that you've always had a passion for. And I love that you're sharing that, because it just shows that, when you start a business, it's not the be all and end all business. There's always room for pivoting. There's always going and finding something else that is more aligned with you as you build your skills and as you grow along the way as well. So I love that you're sharing that. But
absolutely.
The other thing that I want to know as well is, when you kind of started your business in marketing now, how did that transpire as well? Because you've got your own agency and you're doing a lot of design and those kind of stuff. How did that kind of transpire and evolve also to you going, that's it, I've got my own agency, I'm a CEO, and I just love it?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I started out with photography, and I did everything for myself. I created my own website. I was running my own social media. did all my graphic design, my newsletters, everything myself, which was great because I had zero budget. So I couldn't really afford anyone at the time. But then I realized, okay, I'm feeling a little boxed in and I have all these skills that I did for myself. Why don't I offer them to other people? And that's how it kind of got started, the growth into a different business from just the photography. And so I've been growing that over the past year and a half, and finally kind of got down to a couple of core things that I offer. At first I was like, I can do it all. I'm multi-passionate. Here's 10,000 things I can do for you. That quickly got overwhelming and did not work in my favor. So I've now got it down to a couple core things that I really love to offer.
And I think that kind of segues a little bit into what we're going to talk about, which is all about social media. And in particular, we're going to pinpoint a little bit about Facebook, how to use Facebook the right way for your business, Instagram, but also Pinterest. And I'm a huge advocate for Pinterest. I love Pinterest. So why don't I hand over to you and you just talk to us a little bit about how to incorporate social media, obviously, in your business in order to, let's just say grow, because that's what we're all about in business.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the first step is really pinpointing the correct platforms for your business. Not all social media platforms are going to be perfect for you. Obviously, you need to look at your target market, your ideal client, and who you're trying to reach. So for example, with my business, I mostly work with creative female solopreneurs, ages, mid-20s to 30s. However, I have another client who is a physician, and he's trying to reach menopausal women in their 50s and 60s or late 40s. So that's a totally different client. They're going to be on totally different platforms. His clients are mostly going to be on Facebook. Mine are mostly on Instagram and Pinterest. So realizing what platforms you need to use first instead of trying to use them all is really, really key, because you don't want to spread yourself thin and do a lot not very well. You want to do a few things very well. So that's my first suggestion. Once you've got those nailed down, you really need to look about branding your profile. So that starts with having a great professional profile picture, having a banner if you're on Facebook, writing your company about section, creating a Instagram profile that looks like your website or any other branded platform that someone would find. So that also includes when you're posting things, making sure that you're using your color palette. Don't use just random colors that make no sense. You want it to look like cohesive, and like when people see a picture or a quote or something that you post, they know, oh, okay, that's from Modern Darling Media, or that's from whatever brand. So that's also really important. The captions. Now, this is the part that people really hate, because they might be great at posting pictures or posting quotes, but the captions are so super important. And even if you're not a strong writer, you can still have very, very moving and great captions that actually turn people into clients. And so my suggestion is, first, make sure you're always using correct spelling and good grammar. That is my very first thing. If I go in somebody's profile and I see a bunch of misspelled words or periods missing, I'm going to just leave immediately. So one tool that I use is Grammarly. There's a free option and there's a paid option. The free option's great. I write a lot, so I personally upgraded to the paid option. But you can install it in your browser for Chrome or Safari, and it just catches all those little things that you would never see. Even if it's 2 spaces in between a word that makes things look weird, they'll catch that for you. So that's a really great tool to invest in early on, so you're making sure everything looks really professional. But also, captions don't need to be a novel. A lot of people on Instagram feel like, oh, I have to write 10 paragraphs. That's absolutely not true. Actually, engagement shows that those long posts get less engagement than the shorter ones, because people press that show more button and they're like, oh my gosh, this is too much to read. So just making sure it's a powerful, impactful caption that gets your point across, even if it's just a couple of sentences.
Yeah, no, I like that you're saying that in particular, because I'm the same way. If I go onto a post and I see spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, I'm going, oh, I'm not even bothered. And I don't know why. It's just because I'm not interested. Maybe I'm wrong for saying this, but it's almost like, if you didn't make the effort in order to give out the right message, then why should I make the effort in reading it? Right. So I kind of agree with you in that sense.
Really good. And, that goes to say, even if you're using Grammarly and you're trying to have great grammar and punctuation and things like that, it doesn't have to be a super formal way of writing. You can still use, the way you talk, have it casual, conversational. You don't have to lose that, by still having correct grammar and stuff like that. And going off what I also said about the long paragraphs and stuff, if you're a person like me where I love information, I'm an information sponge. I want as much as I can get. So if you're still wanting to share all that great information, go on Instagram stories and do a video of you talking through it instead of putting it in your caption. That's a great way to get that information out there still, and people see your face without having that 10 paragraph caption in your Instagram.
Yes, and people like that. People prefer videos rather than reading scripts.
Absolutely.
So I think the other thing I want to ask you is, obviously when we talk about using Facebook, Instagram, and we'll touch up a little bit on Pinterest as well, but when somebody decides, say for instance, as an example, people go, okay, I want to do Facebook, I want to do Instagram, and I want to do Pinterest. Now, scheduling all of those posts and getting things done and making sure that you're consistent with your content going out, it can get very overwhelming. And when I started doing all of that, oh my gosh, I was completely overwhelmed. Obviously, over time, I learned how to do it the right way. But why don't you talk to the audience about how to stop the overwhelm, really?
Absolutely, yes. I had the same thing happen to me. And so the first thing I did was create a content calendar, and you can download templates or whatever you want to use. I started out using like Google Sheets. In my Google Drive, just had a simple Excel sheet, and I said, okay, here's a column for Pinterest, here's a column for Facebook and Instagram. And I could go in and start writing my captions, and that just saved me a lot of time. I was also able to look at things visually and see where we were going for that month. And when it comes to scheduling, I love a tool called Later. You can use it for Pinterest, you can use it for Instagram and Facebook, and I believe Twitter as well. I'm not a big Twitter person, but it's a great way where you can upload all of your content and schedule it out for the month, put all your captions, you can save hashtag groups in there, and they also, for Instagram, because it's such a visual grid, they show you a preview, so you can really put your grid in a way that looks pretty as well. And so that's a really great tool. If you're looking just for Pinterest scheduling, Tailwind is fantastic. You can schedule out months of pins. You can create different groups that loop through automatically. They also have a kind of section called Tribes, which is similar to group boards on Pinterest, which I'd be happy to talk about later if you're not familiar with those. But Tribes are a great way to kind of connect with other people in your niche and start really getting those repins by people who are kind of pinning the same content. So those are just a couple of tools that really help you plan out your content. And to be honest, I love social media, but I don't want to be on it all the time. So that gives me the knowledge that, all right, I know something's going to go out today. I might not be on an Instagram story. I might not be present posting this, but I know something's going to go out and my audience is still going to see me on the platform.
Exactly. And what I like to do is, I don't know if you have a similar kind of way of working, but say for an example, every Thursday, I've got the morning from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm busy just doing all my scheduling. And whether that's months in advance or 2, 3, 4 months in advance, I just love getting all my scheduling done. So at least I know that can run in the background. So I don't have to wake up in the morning going, oh, I haven't pinned anything. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't put out a post about something that's happening. And you're constantly feeling like you're on the back foot and you're just paddling, keeping head above water. So I don't know if you do something similar where you've got a scheduled or dedicated day where you just do your social media content planning.
Yes, absolutely. I've scheduled out time for that because I know if I don't, I'll push it to the side and I say, okay, I have something else more important. But that is super important. I've got to schedule it in for myself. And another thing that actually helps me a lot is I kind of theme my days. So for example, I love Monday motivation. That seems a little cliche, but to be honest, when I'm going online, Monday is when I need the motivation. So, having Mondays for motivation, having Tuesdays to share blog posts, Fridays for a podcast episode, that really helps me know, okay, I just need 4 of this type of content, 4 of this type of content for each month. And it makes it seem a little bit more bite-sized and less overwhelming.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And also the fact that you can use the tools such as Later to just have a kind of grid layout makes it so much more eye-catching as well, because, it's got to be on brand. Let's face it, you've got to bring your brand into any of your posts that you put on social media. Now, I'm just going to go off the cuff here, but I want to talk a little bit about, obviously you do podcasting as well, and we love social media because it brings us that visibility to our brands, to what it is that we're doing. But the one thing that I always tell my audience is don't just concentrate on social media. Don't just have that as your main platform. Obviously, you need to either have a website or a blog or a podcast, so your own platform where you can bring your audience to. So yes, the visibility part, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, obviously that's the part where it's kind of like the forefront. That's like the television screen where you portray yourself. But behind that, you need to bring them back home in order to show them, obviously, what it is that you do, so you can start communicating with them a lot more. Now, apart from communicating with them just, on those kind of platforms, when it comes to social media, what kind of communication can you do there to take them to the next step in order to come to your website, your blog, your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're very right. You want to get them back to that home base where they can either interact with you, book a call, whatever it is. So there's a couple of different things you can do. There's a great platform called Linktree, which for Instagram is great. It's that little link in your profile instead of putting your website. It's basically just a one page that has the links to all the different things you want to share. So for, say, example, you're sharing a blog post. You could say, click the link in my bio to actually read it. And it would take them to a link that they could click to that blog post. That's a really easy way to get people through to a certain link or website without having to put that in the caption, because obviously captions are not clickable within Instagram. So Facebook's a little bit easier. You can put the URL, in there, and they can click right through. But there's also there's a link in bio capability where you can actually put the link at the bottom of a post that you're scheduling, which makes it a clickable picture. So if you ever follow something like E! Online or any kind of big magazine on Instagram, you'll see if you click the link in their bio, the pictures are actually clickable through to an article or something like that. So that's a great way to actually get people back to your website or blog or podcast, like you mentioned.
Yes. And then from your experience as well, when people start interacting with you either through Facebook, messaging you, or through Instagram, DMing, what are the kind of, do you have like any, how can I say, let me rephrase that. Do you have any tips that you can share with the audience about that kind of interaction, how you can interact with them in order to start building a relationship?
Absolutely. So different for Instagram and Facebook. For Instagram, interaction and engagement is super, super important. The algorithm is changing all the time. I don't think I'm ever on top of all the changes as much as I would like to be, because it's so constant. But one thing that I do know for sure is that your posts and your Instagram profile is going to be a lot more prevalent if you're engaging with people, even if that's 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day. You can do it anytime, anywhere, as long as you do it consistently. And my big thing is you see all the time people just commenting emojis or commenting something that's very vague. People do that all the time, and a lot of the time those things are bots, and they're not real people behind that profile. So my big suggestion is, even if you're commenting on 2 profiles a day, as long as you read the caption and you're doing a thoughtful comment that actually makes sense to what they posted, that's so much better than commenting an emoji on 15 profiles a day. So it's really quality over quantity for Instagram engagement. And one more thing I wanted to mention, make sure if you're going in and engaging, it's a strategic way of engaging. So put in a hashtag that maybe your clients would be searching. So for example, I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. So I engage with the hashtag female founders a lot, or female entrepreneurs, because I know that's where my audience is. And for Facebook, you can go in and interact in Facebook groups, which is how I find a lot of my clients. It's very easy. You just type in whatever topic you're interested in. There is a Facebook group for anything and everything, I swear, even the stuff you would never expect. So you can just type it into the search bar, join a couple of those groups, and just show your face, share tips, share advice, whatever, just get interacting in there. And to be honest, it's a great way to grow your profile. But there's also another way of marketing on Facebook that I've just recently gone into, which is messenger marketing. So it's through a Facebook Messenger. I use a platform called ManyChat, where you can share a freebie or an opt-in with people and grow your messenger marketing list. And that way you can have people opening your messages a lot quicker and a lot more than, say, for email. The open rate is double compared to email when it comes to messenger marketing. So it's a whole nother topic we could probably talk about for an hour. But if someone's interested in something new and something where they know people are going to open it, I would definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've never heard about that. So maybe we should do another podcast and you can talk all about that. I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, no, that is fascinating. I made a note about that. So I'm definitely going to check it out. The other question I want to ask you is, I want to talk about Pinterest, because Pinterest is definitely one of the best ways to get traffic to your website, blog, podcast. And it's an organic way of getting traffic to you as well, if done right and consistently.
Absolutely.
Do you have a couple of tips, or can you explain a little bit about how Pinterest and Tailwind in particular works?
Absolutely. So Pinterest is a little bit different from Facebook and Instagram or LinkedIn or anything like that, because it really works as like a search engine compared to like a social media network, even though that's still what it is. So if you approach it from that way, your strategy is a little bit different. You want to think about SEO and keywords and things like that, because if you're typing in something, say for example, recipes for Thanksgiving, and you don't have that in your profile or your pin description, it's not going to come up. So it works just like Google. You've got to have your SEO and your keywords within your Pinterest description. So Tailwind is a great platform because you can create your pins. I use Canva to create my pins. It's very easy to use and it's free if you don't have something like Photoshop. So you just upload your pins, write in your description, make sure that you have keywords in your description that make sense for that pin. Like I said, if it's a pin about Thanksgiving recipes, make sure that keyword is in your pin description. You can also put in hashtags if you would like, and then you can choose what board to put it to. Now, the board creation is also something that can be branded. If you go to your profile and you look at the different boards, you'll usually see little squares, right, that show kind of an idea of what the pins are in that board. But my suggestion is go ahead and create some Pinterest board covers. So it looks very branded. Everyone looks the same. I believe I have a blog post about it, about how you can create it. I can send you a link to that later if you want. But they're very simple to make. You just got to make sure you have the correct dimensions. And that way your profile looks very branded and they can click through. And make sure your pins are branded as well. If you're creating pins for blog posts or freebies or your website, whatever it is, make sure it's got your brand colors. Make sure your photos fit for your brand. So for example, if I'm trying to reach female entrepreneurs and all of my pins have pictures of 45-year-old men, that doesn't make sense, right? Mm-hmm. So make sure your pictures that you're using also make sense to use. So that's just a couple of things. Like I said, Tailwind has tribes, which is similar to group boards. And group boards, all you have to do to find those is type in whatever topic you're looking for, select boards on the side, and you'll see group boards have the little circle around it with dots around it. So that's how you know how it's a group board. And those are just great ways to interact within your niche on Pinterest.
Yeah. And the other thing I find as well is on Tailwind, I get to interact with people in the tribes as well, which is a really another good way of just building other relationships. And I've had some great success where I'm putting out a message in the tribe, in the messenger, in the tribe area, basically. And you get some responses and you get people coming back to you with either answers or saying that they're going to help you out with something in particular, which is really great. So it's another way as well to start building some relationships with other people in the same kind of niche or industry that you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I think the other thing I want to ask is, you've obviously mentioned some great tools for us here to use, in particular with Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest in particular. Is there any other tools that you are using in your business that you would recommend in order to help people with kind of their social media content planning or with any other planning around social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I use Asana, which is a great tool to track your projects. It's also kind of just an online to-do list for yourself. If you're working with other clients, you can create a project board for yourself so they know when certain tasks are checked off. They can add, PDFs or pictures or notes to these to-do tasks. So it's a great way to just keep top of mind what you need to get done, and also see, the timeline of a project. So Asana is great. I'm trying to think for social media specifically. If you're just finding, and if you need a place to store all your graphics or captions or things like that, Google Drive is very simple. And what I love about it is I do travel a lot, and I'm not always at my computer. So I can access those at any time if I just log into my Google account. I don't have to bring my hard drive with me everywhere, things like that. So that makes life a lot easier and a lot less to carry. But just outside of social media, I use Dubsado is a great customer management system that I use. Keeps all my contacts and my client information. You can send contracts and invoices and emails through that as well. So I use that almost on a daily basis.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing those additional tips as well. Just to conclude everything, so for everybody listening, obviously, Katie is giving some great advice here on how to kind of systemize and use social media in order to get more visibility, to stay consistent, to stay on track with what it is that you're doing. But the idea is always, when you use social media, it's not just about publishing content. You need to have a goal in mind. And that's one of the most important things that so many people sometimes miss. Yes. So whenever you have any goal in mind, whenever you're working on a project, an event, anything within your business, make sure that your content is planned around that goal. And then obviously go and schedule it. Use Scheduler like Later as a tool in order to map it all out for you. Use the tools that are available. Think about Pinterest, think about Facebook, think about Instagram. But you don't have to do all of them, in particular if you're just starting out. Choose one and then go with that. Once that is running, you got into the habit of being consistent, then maybe go and use another platform and do the same thing. If you're brave and you've got VAs to help you, or you've got a team around you, obviously you can go all in and you can use all the platforms. But the idea behind social media is obviously for you to get visibility. To get visibility for your brand and for your business, who you are and what you're doing. So always make sure that you have that basic platform for yourself that you're in control of and you can manage. And that will be either your website, your email list, your blog, your podcast, whatever kind of platform you have available. Now, Katie, where can people get hold of you if they obviously want to get to know some more great stuff about social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at moderndarlingmedia.com. I'm also Modern Darling Media on Instagram and Facebook. And I share a lot of tips about social media and just other business tips as well on my podcast, which you can find under the education tab on my website. I'm on Pinterest as well. I love to connect with people on there. It's just Modern Darling Media LLC.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And obviously, Katie has got a huge amount of resources available for anybody who's listening here now. Whether you want to know more about social media, whether you want to know more about branding, Canva, using pictures, oh my gosh, she's got so many resources available for you. So by all means, go below. The link will be below my show notes, below this video, below the audio, so you can just go get it there and obviously connect with Katie as well. Katie, thank you so much for your time on the podcast. Is there any last tips, any last advice you would like to give the audience?
Just to mention, if anyone's interested in podcasting, I have released a course about how to start your podcast. The trick is doing it quick and on a budget. To be honest, podcasting is one of the most accessible platforms out there, and you don't have to have a lot of experience or expensive equipment to make it happen. So you can find that under the education tab on my website as well.
Yes. Interested. What we'll do is we'll link that as well. We'll have that in the show notes as well for everybody. So those of you who are thinking about starting a podcast such as this, by all means, go and have a look. It will be below in the show notes. Thank you again, Katie. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing all your expertise and knowledge. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.